Okay, thank you for that, and welcome to everyone watching virtually to our regular council meeting of Tuesday, April 26, 2022. We have an agenda in front of us. Are there any changes from administration? Mr. Coleman?
No additions or deletions from administration, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Looking for someone to move the agenda as presented. Councillor Wanchuk, thank you very much. All in favor? That's unanimous. We have adoption of previous minutes, April 12th. Someone want to move those minutes as being correct? Councillor Scobie, thank you very much. All in favor? That's unanimous. We have an opportunity at the beginning of every meeting at 1:30 for anybody who would like to address council on a matter that is not on the agenda but of interest to county council to do so. I am seeing no one coming forward. So with that, we'll move on to, I guess it's Mr. Downey and a staff introduction.
All right, so I'm pleased to introduce Cam Ryan. He's come on board here just this week.
Last week,
sorry, time flies. He's a utilities technician for us full time. He has his water and wastewater diploma from NATE. He just recently attained his level 2s in water distribution and wastewater collection, and he's going to be a great addition to our team.
Well, welcome, Cameron. I have a pin and provide that to you and a photo for our.
Yeah, thank you.
Newspaper here. We'll get to a photo. So here's a county pin for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Thank
and
you.
welcome. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a second recognition, and I'm going to ask Ms. White to come forward to sit. Lynn is retiring after 41 years here with the county, and certainly is going to be missed deeply and greatly by not only her colleagues, but also by the councils that she has served. And just going to give an opportunity for council to provide some words of recognition. We'll start with you, Ray, and work around, and then we'll go to our county manager.
Well, Lynn, it was a bit of a surprise when I walked in 4.5 years ago and asked for papers to chase this job, and you were there to hand them to me and helped me out immensely to make sure I filled it in right and got things done. And
I thought I scared you away.
yeah, no, and then yeah, it didn't take long to realize how important you were around here and how much help you were, and you made my transition into this job a whole lot more manageable. So I really appreciate what you've done around here.
Thank you.
I can kind of echo.
A microphone, please.
I can kind of echo what Ray said, but to me, you're one special person, and we're going to miss you a lot.
Thank you. Thanks, Lynn.
Lynn White,
Yes, Kel.
the controller of the counselors.
Yeah, right.
You did a fantastic job of helping us navigate and manage through and answer those questions and try to find this and try to find that. Going to be really hard to replace. And but I hope that the Greens treat you well.
Thank you. I hope so
coming.
too.
And, good luck to you.
Thank you.
So congratulations on making the decision. I know it was a hard decision, but I also know that you have such a passion for your family and for golf that this is that opportunity to be able to share that. On a personal note, not a day went by that I didn't feel better coming in the office knowing you were sitting in your chair.
Thank you, Tim.
There was not a question I asked that didn't get answered, even if you had to chase it down. And sometimes I know you chase things down for days, but you were committed to providing me as a counselor and me as a mayor the information I needed. And you did so with so much professionalism and so much kindness. You will be missed. And know that your influence on what has it been 6, 7 councils
7, I think.
7 councils will not go, it has not gone unnoticed. And same with the outcomes. You have provided support and influence to many, many people. So thank you and have a great retirement. Kelly?
Thank you. Lynn, from the day I walked in to get my papers, you've been a support that no one, not that they don't know that you're here, but you're just there, and people know that they can count on you for stuff. A voice of reason, someone to bring you back down to ground level, which is always good. You've been a great friend, and you've opened up, I know, to each one of us about your personal lives and your plans for the future. And I'm very proud of the work that you've done here, and it will continue on forever. And good luck in your golf game.
Thank you.
Lynn, what can I say? Known the Carsters family out in Warburg for a better part of 45 years, and to come here and see you, it just feels like home. And you've been such a godsend to me, being the kind of computer illiterate person that I am. You at least knew a whole lot more than I do, and still do it. And like Tanny said, come in here every morning and see the smile, and just a little chat, a visit has been such a pleasure. So we're going to really miss you, Lynn, and good luck on that hole-in-one that you've been chasing.
Thank you.
Hi, Lynn. Again, I've been here for a long time. Again, looking for always your direction. You control 7 fairly high impact people with a lot of work to do, a lot of jobs, a lot of requests. So I've always been there with that package for the community, been there with advice. Again, personally, you and I share a lot with family, just some of the challenges we've had with parents and, just kids and stuff. So I appreciate that level of friendship that you gave. It's going to be a weird day to walk in and not have you there, because I know when you go away on holidays, it was completely out of step. And I just want you to know you forced me to be a better man, because now I know how to photocopy something and send it to myself via email this week. So you forced me to be better. Thank you.
Mr. Coleman?
So thank you. So for me, Lynn, walking in here 5.5 years ago, you welcomed me and supported me in a way that I just assumed that the day I retired would be the day you retire. And that's not the case. And when we have amazing people that leave our organization, it is always a mixed feeling, right? It's a feeling of happiness and pride in seeing you move on to the next phase of your life. But it's a sadness in that we're losing a family member in essence, and someone who has contributed in ways that can't always be counted and measured. And I know you're a humble person, and I probably haven't said this enough to you, but you make a difference in my life. You make a difference in this organization. You don't realize the impact and the effect that you have on us day to day. Council just commented on all the things you do to support them. These are things I haven't even had to think about from the day I started here. And that's not been the case in my career. The care and consideration that you've had for this council and all the previous councils cannot be measured. We had a recent retirement. Rick Thomas retired, and I talked about how he showed up with a chainsaw on his first day. Lynn showed up with work ethic, heart, commitment, dedication, a willingness to help others, a service to the citizens through council, through the other departments that she worked for. That cannot be measured in days or years or long service medals. It's measured in the impacts you've had on all our lives, and all those previous councils and mayors and CAOs that you've served. And by doing that, you've impacted the lives of all the citizens of Leduc County. Thank you for that, Lynn. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
Don't be a stranger. And always know that this place is your home.
Thanks. I thought you were going to say I showed up with butter tarts.
That too. Just would like to know who her favorite.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Okay. I saw my name on the agenda, so I came prepared.
As always.
Yeah. I am nervous though. Yeah. Even though I talk to you guys each and every day. See, I can't even get my paper opened. I folded it up too good. Okay, so if I would have known I was going to have to speak at a council meeting, I wouldn't have retired. Just kidding. When I started 41 and a half years ago, I didn't even know what a municipal council was or a board of education was. Obviously, I didn't do well in social studies in high school. I worked for the school board in the special education department for the first 10 years. Then I spent 13 years with Family and Community Support Services before being promoted to executive assistant to council and administration. I have always been and will continue to be an ambassador for Leduc County. I hope when you reminisce about people, those of us who have retired, you will always say, Lynn always treated Leduc County ratepayers and citizens with respect. And if you're expecting me to tell you that each and every single day here at the county has been amazing, I can't tell you that. There have been challenging moments, and a couple of times I did consider applying for other jobs somewhere else. In the end, I'm really glad I didn't jump ship. The great moments have outnumbered the not so good ones, and I will take with me amazing memories and lasting relationships. I could stand here all day and tell you stories about my experiences, but you're just going to have to wait for me to publish that book. But don't worry, I won't use your real names. Just kidding. All your secrets are kind of safe with me. And if by chance one day you look across the table at a joint council meeting and you see me there, you know either I'm being blackmailed or I have Alzheimer's. No offense, but I have no desire to ever be a politician. I give each and every one of you credit for stepping up and representing your community. It's a challenging job and the rewards are few and far between. Keep up the good work. You don't need me to tell you that as long as you're making the best decisions for your community and the county as a whole, then you can never go wrong. Leduc County will always be a part of my history and near and dear to me. And now my goals have changed. There's a whole bunch of golf courses yet to be conquered, and that elusive hole-in-one is just waiting for me. Thank you for allowing me to assist you for so many years. Yeah.
Probably don't have anybody that can dig out our old yearbooks.
I just.
More you. All my yearbooks.
Thank you. Have a good meeting.
You can stay for the rest of it. I always invite. That's okay. Okay, we're at 1:42. Any idea where to go next or just set up for our
I
public
think,
hearing?
Madam Chair, just maybe set up for our hearing,
Okay.
have staff
So-
come get their presentation ready.
Come on forward, Ms. Haberland. So good afternoon. I'm going to call our public hearing to order at 1:45. I'm Mayor DeBlanco, and I will chair the public hearing, and all questions and comments shall be directed through me. Council is here to listen to the information presented and make a decision on the matter that is the subject of this hearing, which is to amend the Leduc County Land Use Bylaw. This is a formal hearing and not a debate, and everyone wishing to speak who has pre-registered will be given an opportunity to speak once to the matter as called on by myself, the chair. Each presenter must state his or her full name, rural address, and their interest in the matter, including whether they are in support or non-support. Individuals who do not identify themselves will not be given an opportunity to speak. Presenters are asked to stay within a 5-minute time limit of their presentation and are encouraged when speaking to keep the presentation to the point and refrain from restating points raised by previous speakers if possible. If new presentation materials are provided, you may be required to email a copy to our legislative coordinator. And with that, I will call on Ms. Haverland to introduce the subject of the hearing. Ms. Haverland, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good afternoon, councillors. Planning and Development bring forth a land use bylaw amendment for consideration for council this afternoon, which is to amend the land use bylaw section 9.21.4 of the residential urban 2 district. Back in February 2022, administration did undertake a review of the land use bylaw, as well as the municipal development plan and new SREP area structure plan. It was to identify which business opportunities we have in place for new SREP and how can we build upon it. Undertaking that review, we were able to identify that the municipal development plan does identify New Sarepta as a growth hamlet with mixed uses. In addition to the New Sarepta has a variety of mix of land uses for mixed businesses, commercial and residential. The hamlet of New Sarepta itself does provide for a variety of land use options. However, it does not provide for any home-based business employment opportunities at this time. It is only restricted to a home-based business type 1. A type 1 home-based business type 1 does not permit any client visits. So administration undertook the proposed amendment. It was referred and advertised in accordance with Municipal Government Act regulations for 3 consecutive weeks and on the county website. In addition, we did mail out the proposed amendment to all the New Sarepta residents. With that, we did receive 2 phone calls with respect to the public hearing. No concerns were raised. They just wanted more information to understand what the proposed amendment meant to the community. The hamlet of New Sarepta is currently districted land uses such as residential urban 2, urban commercial, industrial, and institutional. An amendment to this land use bylaw will provide the landowners the opportunity to propose a home-based business through a development permit application. A home-based business type 2 does provide flexibility to allow residents of New Sarepta to apply for a home-based business use within a dwelling or accessory development. Examples of this type of uses would be a yoga studio, massage therapy, hairstyling, nail, etc., to be considered as a discretionary use. Discretionary uses will ensure that the development authority considers any compatibility of any proposed home-based business type 2 with the surrounding lands in terms of function, form, scale, and servicing. Home-based business types 2 are limited to a 2-year approval to ensure that if a property is being sold or intensified or altered in any way, we have the opportunity to amend the conditions in 2 years or revoke a permit. Administration are recommending that a land use bylaw be amendment to consider the home-based business type 2 use be added to the residential urban 2 district. However, residential urban 2 district does apply to our urban growth area. Therefore, the amendment would be explicitly only to the hamlet of New Sarepta in order to not have any implications on our urban growth areas. So therefore, to achieve this option, the proposed amendment is listed, which is an amendment to the discretionary 9.214 uses, adding home-based business type 2 with a special regulation that does say it may only locate only in the hamlet of New Sarepta. The amendment benefits the hamlet of New Sarepta community and opens up more possibilities to apply for the home-based business type 2. A discretionary use designation will ensure that the development authority can consider the compatibility of any proposed home-based business type 2 with the surrounding landowners. Therefore, the Planning and Development Department do recommend that council provide first, second, and third reading to the proposed bylaw to amend the land use bylaw this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Haverland. I will open the floor for any questions, clarifying questions for administration. Councillor Smith.
So this is just a land use change. This wouldn't be conditions on separate development permits that may come before you for people to get legal within this then? So if I'm going to open up, say I open up a bottle, well, I guess, whatever you stated, I can see further conditions then within a development permit?
Through the mayor, yes, there is no conditions applied to the land use bylaw amendment. It's just simply just a use being added to the district.
And a follow through. So everything else would have to come back to you for
Any
approval
use,
and conditions that would be suitable to adjacent properties if they were to I guess, stand up and express concerns?
so through the mayor, any development permit application, any use applied will require a development permit application. And at that time, it will be circulated to all adjacent landowners.
Thank you. Those were going to be my questions. Thank you, Councillor Smith. And I heard you say this amendment is only for the hamlet of New Sarepta, not any other urban areas, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Further questions, Councillor Vandenberg?
In response to that last question, is it because New Sarepta has uniquely the urban, what is that referral?
RU.
Referring to it as
Are you too?
like an RU2? Is that why? Residential urban 2 district? Is that because we have only one of those and it's in New Sarepta?
Yes. RU2 only applies to New Sarepta and to our urban growth area.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Coleman, have we received any other relevant correspondence that was not included in our packages?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I see there were no registered speakers. And I am going to call if there's any speakers. We have no one in our gallery today, so I'm going to make the assumption we have nobody speaking for or against. There is no one here to do that. And with that, any final comments, Ms. Haverland? Just a smile. Thank you. And in no further questions from council? No further questions, so we will close our public hearing at 1:53, and I will open the floor for discussion and debate on the recommendation to change the land use. Councillor Smith.
I'll just start with, I get lots of requests for every type of businesses, from tattoos, salons, to metal fabrication. And again, what I believe this does is I believe it allows people the option to do the mom and pop, the corner store, the small things. We have people doing nails, we have people doing tattoos, we have people looking at massage, hair. They're all little things that have left the community and they're coming back. And of course, we're trying to get land on site for some of the bigger calls that we have. So I always truly appreciate it when residents of Leduc County stand up and they try to be legal with their conducting of business. And I think what this will do will bring many more of them in. And a lot of this came from conversations in the community going, how do we get legal? How can we do this? Well, maybe we need to look at changing what we can allow. And then I love legal businesses operating. So I'll be supporting the changes today, the 3 readings, if we can move through that. Thank you.
Would you like to just put the first reading
I'll put
on
the
before?
first reading on
Because we
on
can
the table.
continue to
Thank you.
ask questions and debate. Councillor Lewis and then Councillor Vandenberg.
Thank you very much. I will support the readings today in light of the past 2 years and the struggles many people have had trying to stay afloat. This is a step in trying to help them properly set up a business and being able to support their families. So I will support this today.
Thank you. Councillor Vandenberg.
So, and I could have brought this up a little bit earlier and I forgot to jump in on it, but the type 2, if you could just clarify for me, the type 2 business shall not be located in a dwelling, comma, secondary. Item I, but in item G, not occupy more than 30% of the gross floor area of principal dwelling and 50% of any accessory building. So I kind of don't understand, it kind of contradicts itself. And maybe I don't understand that maybe this is a secondary dwelling we're talking about.
Okay,
Could
we
you
will,
please
yeah,
explain?
we will go back to administration for a clarifying question.
So
Go
through the mayor, a secondary dwelling is a second residence on site where the home-based business here allows for in the dwelling itself or an accessory building, which is the garage, detached garage, completely separate from a secondary dwelling. Secondary dwellings aren't allowed on any residential urban 2 lands, being that they're urban development. They would only be allowed out in the rural areas anyways, so it wouldn't
I
apply.
thought as much, but having dwelling, comma, secondary, if it said secondary dwelling, I wouldn't be asking the question.
I know it's confusing.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or debate? We have first reading on the floor right now. I am seeing none. All in favor? That's unanimous. Second reading from Councillor Balazer. Again, open for any debate. Seeing none. All in favor? That is unanimous. You need to go third reading and third day. Is that yours, Councillor Vandenberg? And this needs to be unanimous in order to move forward on this in the same day. All in favor? That is unanimous. And third reading, Councillor Lewis. Thank you very much. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to Miss Klamosko and Miss Weiss. Is she coming? It was sort of a question at the end there.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So this afternoon, I have a report with many attachments to present the 2022 final budget for Council's consideration. So we do have a recommendation to approve the 2022 final budget with total expenses of just over $114 million. So I will go through the package. If Council has any questions as I navigate the various documents, please ask as we go along and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So
Okay.
going to the next first document on page 21 of your package, we have a consolidated budget summary. So what this does is Leduc County operates under fund accounting. So we have an operating fund and a capital fund, and this is the high-level summary of the two types of expenditures and revenues that we have within our budget. So you'll see that with the various revenues and expenditures, we operate with no surplus or deficit, but it is a balanced budget to zero and has the revenues and expenditures of that just over that 114 million that I spoke about in the recommendation. Going to the next sheet within the package on page 22, we have a more detailed breakdown of the operating fund budget more specifically. So it's broken down by type of expenditure as well as by department. So it just outlines where all of the revenues and expenses are within the operating budget.
And just before we move on, just a note that Council has seen these documents many times over the last 6 months, 6 or 7 months, and have been working very hard with questions and comments to administration. So really this is a summary for Council. This is not the first time we've seen this. So we might not have as many questions as we had during the budget debates and decisions. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Ms. Klamosko.
Yes, to clarify, we do go through multi-day budget deliberations at the interim. So in November, December of last year, we went through the budget in great detail. What the final budget does is just captures a few updates that occurred from when budget was approved at the beginning of December. So it brings in some adjustments that are required. And then what it also does is allows us to bring in any projects that weren't finished within the 2021 fiscal year. We carry forward those projects into the 2022 final budget. So going to the next document is your high-level summary of all of the capital budget expenditures. So again, by type of expenditure and revenue, as well as by department. So these two high-level documents just capture all of the more detailed documents at that highest level, just to provide that total budget summary that I went through right at the beginning. Going into the next page within the package, we go to 2022 final municipal tax dollars required. So we have here that we require just over $75.6 million for taxes to be levied to balance our budget. Of that amount, you'll see that just under 28 million is for requisitions. So these are funds that we collect for other organizations. So for the Government of Alberta and the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, we collect requisitions on their behalf. We do not control these expenditures. These are ultimately invoices that we receive that we will collect tax dollars for them, and then we will collect it and pass the dollars to those organizations. So when we remove that expenditure of that $27.9 million, as well as we also collect the local improvement taxes, so local improvements that have been levied years ago in the municipality, we come to tax dollars required to meet our 2022 budget requirement. So that is the $46,522,327 and that is a 2% tax dollar budget increase over the 2021 final budget. So when we spoke to council last year around our 2022 budget guidelines, administration was given the direction that council supported a 2% tax dollar budget increase. So this budget does meet the guidelines that were set out for administration last year. Going to the next document in the package, we have a tax dollar requirement breakdown. So it just puts our tax dollar requirement broken down by department. So it just demonstrates the funding from taxes that fund the various expenditures in the various areas within our budget. So then if you go to the bottom of the first page, you'll see the yellow square on the right-hand side. So that just indicates that that's a 2% tax dollar budget increase over 2021. And then ties into our other documents in terms of what our requirement is for total tax dollars to be levied within our tax notices. All right. The next document is an adjustment summary. So this really is capturing any changes that administration wants to highlight for council from what was approved at the 2022 interim budget. We've captured various adjustments that are required, and it's all put on this page so the council can see in one place all of the changes that administration is proposing for final budget. Within this document, you'll note there are some of the items that are highlighted in blue. And what that signifies is within the budget package, there was project profile documents that were created for these specific projects so that it provided more project detail on these additions into the final budget package. So that is within the package.
Just a question, Ms. Klamosko, if I'm someone watching this presentation today, I can go back on our website and find those documents and the process that council went through, correct? Those were all public meetings.
That's right. So within our agenda packages, we have all of the budget documents that were presented to council back in November and December of 2021. And then also all of the information that we're going through today with council is available on our website.
Thank you.
So going through the adjustment summary, I'll just go through this in a little bit more detail to highlight the changes. So we have, I spoke about how when projects weren't completed in 2021, this process allows us to carry forward those budget dollars into 2022. So those first couple of lines within this adjustment summary are doing just that and bringing forward those projects that we need to complete in 2022. The next project we have is Business Retention and Expansion Center. And we did have a report come to council on March 8th, and council approved a motion to approve some funding dollars. We did receive some grant dollars to look at repurposing our Nisku Rec Center. And so that this is just bringing it formally into our budget documents. And you'll see many of the things that we have as additions. They won't be new to council today, just because we have brought reports forward and we have council motions to support the additions. So the next item is the agricultural impact assessment for the Central Nisku Local Area Redevelopment Plan. So that is an increase of $7,300 and it is to be funded by reserve. The next project we have added is the Nisku Water Facilities fence improvements. Again, this was something we had initially discussed at interim. However, we needed to look at the budget asked for that item. So administration looked into that further. So that project profile document was amended. So that project is a $15,000 cost. The next project is a replacement of a parks utility vehicle. We did have a vehicle that was stolen last year. So this is the dollars required for that replacement. Again, we had a council motion and a report that had come forward to council back in January on that item. So the next line in the adjustment summary is the purchase of graders. So again, this was when we went to tender on the purchase of the graders, that the tenders, they came above cost of what we had budgeted. So we had brought a report to council for consideration for additional funding. So this is just putting it within the 2022 budget. The next two lines, the bridge and the road program, again, we went to tender early in the year for these two programs, and these two lines are adjusting the funding for those two programs. So the bridge funding, we actually realized some tax dollar savings of $56,000. And then what we also did is just realigned some of the tender pricing for the individual projects within the program. And same within for the road program, we didn't have tax dollars savings there because we had a lot of grant funding within the road program. So you'll see the adjustment there is $33,000, but it just doesn't affect tax dollars. So it was just a change of some funding for the projects within the road program. The next line on this adjustment summary is again, a project that once we went to tender, was higher than anticipated. So a council motion was passed on February 22nd to increase the funding for that plow sanding truck project. Going to the next changes to operating budget section of the adjustment summary. We have again some operating carry forward amounts. So that was around that $503,000. So there were motions done through the year-end process to carry those projects forward. The next item, fuel, recognizing that costs on fuel prices have increased. We realize that this will be an increase to us as a municipality, and we have increased the budget for fuel for $200,000 to recognize that increased cost. Another item that had been discussed with council was the Chamber of Commerce, the Startup Leduc initiative. We do have funding within our current sponsorship budget to allow for funding of that $10,000 to occur within the funds that we had approved at interim budget. So that is also being considered here. The next line is we do tax share dollars from the Edmonton International Airport with the city of Leduc. So this is an adjustment to recognize now with finalized assessment at the airport. We were able to finalize the portion of the tax share that would go to the city of Leduc. So we needed an adjustment of $140,000 for that item. And then again, with our budget guidelines that were set last year, recognizing we were anticipating a decrease to assessment, we had, council had given administration approval to use up to $2 million of reserve funding to balance our budget this year. Fortunately, we did realize some growth in assessment. So we saw that the draw that we require from reserves to balance our budget is $359,000. Going to the next section within the summary is changes to earnings and benefits. So we have an adjustment of $75,000 to a position within the county. So a small change to our budget within earnings and benefits. And then the final section is around the changes to requisition. So again, we received the information from these organizations, the Government of Alberta and Leduc Regional Housing Foundation. So we ensure that we collect the proper amount of requisitions to pass on to those organizations. So in total, you'll see at the box at the bottom that we require for municipal purposes $46,522,327. We do have tax dollars required for local improvement levies as well as for requisitions to again balance to that just over $75.6 million. So continuing through the documents behind the adjustment summary, we had the project profile documents that I spoke to at the beginning of the adjustment summary. So that information is there to provide that additional project context. And then going to page 37 of the package, we have a capital fund reserve schedule. So we have at the start of 2022, we had just over $22.3 million in reserves in the capital fund. And we are using 4.7, just over $4.7 million in reserves, adding back $1.4 million. And then we'll have budgeted balance in this capital reserve fund of just under $19 million at the end of December 31st, 2022.
Ms. Klamosko, there are, it says asset life cycle, special purpose, statutory and utilities. Can the reserves only be used for the category that they're in, or can they be used for anything?
So we do have a reserve policy in place that specifies use and for specific reserves that we've established. However, it is council's ability to repurpose a reserve at any time. So if council wanted to use something for a different purpose, they can do that through council motion.
Thank you.
Going to the next reserve schedule, we have the operating fund. So again, we're starting the year just over $25.5 million. And with the use and some additions within the operating fund reserve schedule, we're anticipating the budgeted balance of just over $23.6 million at the end of 2022. Okay. So going to page 39 of the package, we have a summary of our major and capital project plans. Again, it's just the total expenditures that we have within our two distinct plans, the total requests of the $29.8 million, and then some funding breakdown of how we're funding these various projects. So page 40 just breaks now down specifically into our major project plan and shows what the total expenditures are and then the funding sources. And then going into page 41 and 42 outlines the detailed projects that are being done within the major project plan. So it's broken down into three sections now for final budget. So you'll see the first section is interim major projects. So that was what was approved by council in December of last year. The next section is carry forward projects. So that is through the council motions that were passed through the year-end process. Those were the projects that council approved to carry forward to 2022. And then you'll see a final adjustment section that just has the two changes that we have put on the adjustment summary. So it just puts everything in one place in those 3 different categories. So now going to the capital project plans, same high-level summary of expenditures and funding type. And then going to page 44, we have, again, the interim capital projects that were approved by council, then the carry forward projects that were approved, as well as the final adjustments that we put within the adjustment summary for a total capital project plan of just over $27.9 million.
A question on the carry forward. Do we carry forward projects because we either didn't have the personnel? Like what's the why do we carry, why are some projects carried forward? And would we have some coming out of the this budget as well? Thank you.
So I think projects are carried forward for lots of different reasons. I think in 2021, we saw supply chain issues were fairly substantive. So I think that impacted quite a few of our projects. So I think that's one consideration. Sometimes various factors affect project timelines. So something that we had hoped to finish within a calendar year just, for various reasons can not be completed so that they need to be carried forward to the next year. So I think there's lots of different factors that can play a part into why a project gets carried forward.
Thank you.
So going to page 46, again, we just have broken down the road program in more detail with all of the various projects within the road program. One thing I just wanted to highlight specifically to council is within that page 47 is just this summary here about, because often we get asked about our investment in our road network. So this just provides a good summary to council and to our residents on the investment that is made through the capital project, through the road program, but also we also make investments through our operating budget. So it just provides some of the operating components that we do within our operating budget to support our road network as well.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful.
So then page 48 of the package has the bridge program. So again, just some adjustments based on the tender bidding that we received. So we did adjust the summary. So then we ultimately the variance explanations, the budget aligns with our tender pricing. So with that, that's a very quick overview of our final budget, the adjustments that are being proposed by administration to council today to consider. We do have a recommendation on page 20 of the package outlining the total budget ask broken down by operating expenditures and then also capital expenditures. So on page 20.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the overview. Certainly want to express my appreciation for the amount of time administration takes with council to understand the budget as well as the budgeting process. This year was pretty unique because all of our councillors returned from the municipal election. So it was a little bit more seamless moving into budget because we didn't have to relearn what the process was and things like that. But you took the time we needed to be comfortable with it and greatly appreciate that. Councillor Vandenberg.
I just want to reiterate, thank you for the hard work. And it does help when we've seen this before and it sticks a little bit easier. And so long as the numbers add up, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the 2022 final budget with total expenses of $114,872,756 operating expenses of $87,841,069 and capital expenses of $27,031,687. I notice there's no cents in there, so I don't know if they really add up.
I would like to say we budget that well, but we'll round up to the nearest dollar.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to recommend the final budget. Any further comments or questions? I am seeing none. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And on to 6B, 2022 property tax bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So now the next order of business, now that we have a final budget approved, is to look at passing our property tax bylaw. So that gives us the authority to move forward with the issuing of tax notices. So we have a property tax bylaw for council's consideration. So I will walk through the bylaw with you here today. So on page 50, here. All right, so again, going into that's the second paragraph, the estimated municipal expenditures tie into what we've just approved within the final budget. So that 114,872,756 dollars broken down into operating and capital purposes. And then we outline that we will anticipate to have other revenues of that 39 million, with the balance being raised through general municipal taxation of that $75.6 million. So we outline in the bylaw the requisitions that we are collecting for the other organizations. So that is outlined within the bylaw. And then going a little bit further here, we put in information in terms of our assessment base. So we have a total assessments of just over $8.6 billion. So that is broken down in the bylaw into the various categories of assessment. So then going to page 2 of the bylaw, then we break down into the various types of assessment classes and the various types of levies, and we have set mill rates. So you have our municipal mill rates, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see the levy amount that is collected for municipal purposes. Then you have Alberta School Foundation Fund and opted out school boards, then the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation and designated industrial property requisition, and then we have the local improvement and frontage levy tax dollars that are collected. So that is an overview of the bylaw itself. Another piece of information that was included with this report was the breakdown of the various mill rates on page 52 and 53 of your package. There was just the breakdown of the mill rates in a different layout for council. So with that, we have a recommendation in front of council this afternoon to give first, second, and third reading to the 2022 property tax bylaw.
Thank you very much. Any questions for administration? Councillor Vandenberg?
So in previous sessions, when we were talking about assessment of mill rates, one of the things that we're always interested in is comparisons with our neighbors. And you did provide that information for us. And it was very pleasing to see that we are extremely competitive. We spend our money very wisely in Leduc County. But I don't know that document would ever be, maybe it was for our eyes only, I don't know. But I just wanted to suggest that we're sitting pretty good when it comes to mill rate for the most part.
Is that a nod? They can't tell that on camera.
So yes, I would agree with that statement that we do have a favorable mill rate in comparison. When we provided a document to council within workshop, just looking at other municipalities in our region in comparison to the mill rates that we have versus others.
Ms. Klamosko, when I do get my tax notice, it'll be the assessed value plus they're multiplied by the mill rate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And because I live on a farm, my farm yard is not considered farmland. Is that correct?
So we do have typically, I mean, every situation is a bit different, but we do have a residential section assigned to sites that have a home on a property, that there's like a 3-acre typical assessment for that residential for that section, and then the rest would be farmland.
Well, thank you, because someone had asked me this year if they bought a farm and then had their house on there, would they have a less would their taxes be less on their house because they were then being taxed at a farmland rate? And I said, no, I believed we actually take out the residential piece and that's a different rate.
Yes, we do break out. So one property doesn't necessarily just have one assessment class on it. You can have multiple assessment classes on the same
So
property.
read it carefully. And if you have any questions, certainly our department would be happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely. We have an assessment department that is more than happy to answer any questions that any ratepayers have in terms of their assessment of their property.
Councillor Vandenberg?
And I thought maybe you might lead into with residents, then taxpayers expect to see that little pie chart that we've sent out in the past that shows where the tax dollars are going, because it's very informative.
It is.
Yes. So we do have, we'll preview what we're going to put for inserts into with our tax notices. Thank you for the segue.
Before that was next.
So we do have 2 pages of inserts that we'll be putting with the tax notices. So this is the pie chart that I think we've become familiar with, just breaking down our budget into the types of expenditures by department that, where are your municipal tax dollars going? So we provide a breakdown of what that $1 will give you and where the tax dollars are going. So then also, we also break down just in terms of, okay, we can't just look at the budget alone, because that doesn't tell you anything of what that's going to mean to you as a resident or a taxpayer in the municipality. So what we've done here in this next table is broken down, looking at all of the tax notices that will be issued, how many will see a decrease in their tax notice, how many people will see no change, and then how many will see increases in their tax notice. So just to speak to a couple of the numbers that are on this table, 772 properties will see no change from their tax notice from 2021. We have 7,500 properties that will see an increase of less than $100. So that's 66% of our ratepayers in the county. So then the table is broken down just to outline how people are impacted from the mill rates, the assessment on the tax notices. So then on the second page, we also, there's an education piece just around, again, because for requisition dollars, and it's not controlled by Leduc County. We just really want to, again, educate that we have a municipal portion that covers expenditures for the municipal government of Leduc County. And then we also collect requisitions for the government of Alberta and Leduc Regional Housing Foundation. So that just outlines of what you're sending to Leduc County. Not all of the funds stay with Leduc County. And then again, we have a piece just around assessment and how we are always looking backwards with assessments. So we're looking at market value as of July 1st, 2021. And so again, there's the assessment department's phone number within the tax insert. So if anybody has any questions that they please call our assessment department to get clarification. Then also outlining the various methods of how our ratepayers can pay for their taxes, just outlining some various options for them as well. Then we have the second insert. So again, we do have a tax installment payment plan. So we encourage our ratepayers to sign up for this payment plan to break down the payments within 12 payments throughout the year. So we do have some information on that. And then on the back side of that page, just again, collecting information for our public participation. So really asking people to subscribe for public participation with the county, so that their input matters, and we would really love for them to take some time to go on our website to subscribe.
Thank you very much for that. That's very helpful. So my taxes might go up because the mill rate changed. It also might go up because I've done something in my house, in my yard, built a new shop, built a garage. My assessed value has gone up. So when you look at that, you have to be able to figure out what it is. And then if you still have a question, I guess, give us a call.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Councillor Vandenberg.
And on the first overhead that you showed, which is the pie plate itself, there is one thing that kind of caught my interest, the policing, the contribution towards the provincial policing funding model, and perhaps maybe a couple of others, but did we last year collect for that? Is this something that, is there a number of things that are new to this year than have been in previous years? And if so, will tax or people want to know more information about where did this come from and why does this happen?
So the police funding model was on the tax notices last year. So this isn't something new this year. However, I mean, it is something that's relatively new, so that we're still highlighting it as an additional specific cost within this loony breakdown. But it is not new for 2022.
Oh, that's a loony, not a toonie?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Otherwise, everything else within that breakdown is consistent with what was on the breakdown last year.
Okay, thank you for that. If there's no further questions, I'm looking for someone to move first reading on the bylaw. Councillor Lewis, put your name to first reading. Thank you. So first reading on our property tax bylaw for 2022. I'm seeing no other hands up. All in favor? Unanimous. Second reading. Councillor Scobie, thank you very much. Any comments, questions, or debate? Seeing none, all in favor? Third reading on the same day. Councillor Smith, needs to be a unanimous vote to go to third reading. All in favor? And that's unanimous. And third reading. Councillor Wanchuk, thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for all the hard work from all the departments as well as our finance department to put together a budget that will move us forward, is forward looking, and certainly keeps us competitive within the region. So thank you for that. And on to Ms. Weiss and penalties.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. So I am here today I'm seeking approval for Council to cancel 31 penalties for utility invoices that were sent out in December of 2021. So every 2 months, we send out approximately 1,300 utility notices. Of those, about 700 of them are actually emailed to our utility customers. So in December, what happened was we had some of those emailed invoices not go out. It wasn't all of them. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of rhyme or reason to how. We've worked with our internal IT department as well as our software provider. But at the end of the day, some customers did not receive their invoices. As a result, they did see penalties on their account. So I'm here today asking that those penalties be canceled. So there's 31 penalties. Some customers were able to call us and say, I didn't receive it. So they were able to make their payments on time, but not everybody.
Okay, well, thank you. And I mean, I appreciate again some integrity on behalf of our organization saying this was our mistake. And so we'll certainly make sure that that money goes back to the people who were had a penalty applied to them when it was our error. So thank you for that. I'll be happy to move that. That Leduc County Council approve the cancellation of attached utility penalties in the amount of $365.91 for the December 31st, 2021 invoice. And Ms. Weiss, have we fixed that glitch?
We tested in February. Everything was good.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Smith?
The one thing I like about this, it's not a large amount of money, but it does show you probably listen to residents, and a lot of municipalities will go, oh, that's too bad, and hang up the phone. So thank you for going back and then correcting a mistake. It means a lot to our residents.
You're welcome.
Councillor Lewis?
Just clarification, was it an error that we caught, or were you notified of it and then had to look into it?
We actually didn't receive our utility bills either. So
Interesting.
yes, a little bit of both. We were also advised, but when we didn't get our email, we were looking into it.
You thought there was something wrong. Okay. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to 7B1, which is the third reading, bylaw number 0622. And again, we did the first two readings at our last meeting, and we did not have unanimous approval to do three readings in one day. And so we're doing our last reading today. So with that, I'll call the question. Oh, we need somebody to put the third reading on the floor. Councillor Balazer, thank you very much. Third reading. Comments or questions? Councillor Vandenberg?
Yeah, so can we bring that, where is this?
Your
located?
microphone, sir.
Where is this
Highway
located again?
Highway 60.
Highway 60,
To the merits, adjacent to Highway 60 and Highway 39.
Yeah,
north 39 and 60.
and west side of the road.
Oh, that small little piece there.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I remember now. Well,
Yeah,
there's just
I
not
know
enough
we've done a lot, yeah.
information. And it's just in the minutes we approved of today. So,
Any questions on that?
yeah, I'm just running it through my mind, the replay.
So wants to make a dugout, sell
Yep.
the clay, use the dugout for agricultural purposes, but didn't want to keep the clay and dirt on property and wanted to, as my friend over here, Councillor Smith said, do it legal. And so wanted to get the rezoning to direct control so that he could sell this clay off the land.
Still has to apply for a permit.
Correct. This is a rezoning
Okay.
to direct control.
Okay, all right, thank you. I won't be supporting this today.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? I am seeing none. I'm going to call the question on third reading. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Vandenberg. Third reading has passed. Thank you, Ms. Haverland. On to 7B2, policy. DS01, land use bylaw enforcement. Mr. Bain, are you taking the lead on this?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you for that. Madam Chair, this was before council late March at a workshop, so bringing back for you now for your consideration to adopt this. So just a bit of background for you. So this is a draft of policy that establishes the circumstances under which the county would initiate a land use bylaw enforcement investigation or open a file. And so our historical practice has been that enforcement action related to land use bylaw infractions has generally only been taken in response to written public complaints. And so there are some circumstances where there's been deviation from that, and the policy addresses some situations where that could certainly occur within the confines of the policy. And so administration are proposing the council adopt a policy that identifies those specific conditions. And so, Madam Chair, perhaps what I'll do is just go directly to the policy itself, which is, I would say, fairly straightforward. And the second page of the policy, under policy standards, that's kind of where the meat of this really starts. So number one under policy standards identifies the three triggers for starting an enforcement action. The first one is pursuant to a written complaint submitted by a resident or landowner of Leduc County. The second is pursuant to a motion of council, and the third is pursuant to direction from the county manager. And number two indicates that enforcement actions provided for in the MGA and the county's land use bylaw may be undertaken if an investigation reveals that there is something non-compliant about a property, and that leaves the possibility open that there may be non-compliance, but it may not be impactful or significant in any way. And that does happen from time to time. And then number three is just establishes that complaints that are submitted anonymously will not be investigated. And then number four, Madam Chair, identifies three specific circumstances that are exceptions to the triggers that are outlined in number one. And the first one of those is if there's a reasonable risk to public safety, public or individual safety. The second one is if there's a reasonable risk of damage to public infrastructure. And the third one is if there is a reasonable risk that an environmentally sensitive area or agricultural land may be threatened by the activity. So that is the essence of the draft policy, Madam Chair. If there's any questions of council.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn to Councillor Scobie, who's chair of the policy committee. If he has any other insight in the discussion that was there. And then as Mr. Bain said, we did look at it in a workshop setting for all of council to see it as well. So any comments or questions on policy DS01? I am seeing none. Well done, Mr. Bain. Looking for someone to move that we approve policy DS01 land use bylaw enforcement policy. Thank you, Councillor Lewis. I'll put her name to that. Any further comments or questions? I am seeing none. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. On to 7B3, repeal of City of Leduc County Intermunicipal Development Plan. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Johnson.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. As you are aware, the county received a letter from the City of Leduc in November indicating the City Council voted in favor of rescinding the IDP and the IDP Memorandum of Understanding. The county at that time had responded indicating it would be in the best interest of both the city and the county to retain the IDP and requested that the city reconsider repealing the IDP. At the joint council meeting held in February to discuss the repeal of the IDP, the county again expressed the desire to retain the IDP, provided an overview of the rationale for retaining the IDP, and posed a series of questions to matters of how matters of mutual interest would be dealt with in the absence of the IDP. To date, the City of Leduc has not engaged in discussion with the county regarding the repeal of the IDP. On February 28th, the City Council gave first reading to repeal the City of Leduc County IDP. Recently, the city administration inquired as to whether the county would compel mediation prior to the City of Leduc Council giving second reading to repeal the City of Leduc County IDP. It is evident that the City of Leduc is committed to repealing the IDP, and compelling the city to engage in mediation would be ineffective. For this reason, administration recommends the county waive the requirement of section 6.3.5 of the IDP that requires mediation prior to the City of Leduc Council considering second reading of the bylaw to repeal the IDP, subject to the City of Leduc agreeing to engage in constructive discussion with Leduc County to address intermunicipal issues in the respective municipalities' municipal development plans. In accordance with the MGA, the MDP must address the coordination of land use, future growth patterns, and other infrastructure with adjacent municipalities if there is no intermunicipal development plan with respect to those matters. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councillor Vandenberg.
Just for clarity, what is the difference between mediation and arbitration, and how does that apply here?
So arbitration does not apply here. There's the policy that's in the MDP that speaks to mediation, and mediation is intended to have open discussion to resolve the issues regarding the repeal of the IDP.
Okay. Councillor Smith.
I noticed in the recommendations, you were hoping that Leduc would agree to engage in constructive discussions with the County of Leduc to address intermunicipal issues in the respective municipal plans. I'm wondering, has that happened before? And I'm just wondering, we had this device that allowed us to do that. I see we've made comments which are kind of, yeah, whatever, and blown away. So I'm not sure that we have constructive conversation with them as it is. I think, again, there's a process here, and everything we do is a process. So I think we need to go to mediation, myself with the City of Leduc, before they go to second reading and see where they're coming from. We have lots of things here that we've talked to each other about, why this is important. Your recommendation says waive it and then ask them to be respectful. Well, that's what hasn't happened or doesn't seem to be happening right now. So I'd rather go to mediation and get our points across to the City of Leduc of the challenges we're having. I'm just looking at the last referral you had on Highway 2A, which is a major road through. Putting all of those intersections at less distances that are recommended and we went against it. That's our road. That's how our residents get home and they were ignored. Is that constructive? So let's go to mediation. Let's have our talk. Let's express ourselves there. That's my opinion. And I appeal to council today to have, I'm not going to sit on mediation, obviously, but somebody else can sit back and get our point across. And this is going to get repealed. They may not be willing, but it's a point, it's a chance for Leduc County to stress a point on something that we value. So in light of that, Mayor, I would like to make a recommendation that Leduc County not waive the requirement of mediation with the city of Leduc to repeal whatever the IDP subject with the city of Leduc. So that's before us now. I say in the recommendation, go to mediation so we can get our point across on further development in the future, because this is our last chance.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor that we actually go to mediation as opposed to waiving it. Councillor Vandenberg.
So I'm hearing that the chances are is that the city of Leduc, regardless, are not interested in going into mediation. I guess that's their say, so that's a clarifying question. And the second part of that is, what is just the small snippet of what is the mediation process look like? Who is in control there?
In mediation, how does that work?
So I will defer that to Grant.
So, Madam Chair, mediation is essentially just a facilitated process. It's a facilitated conversation.
Yeah.
That's right. So it is distinct from arbitration. That arbitration is a binding process. That's not what this is.
Would we have to purchase a mediator? I'm seeing a yes from Mr. Coleman, and I know that those types of consultants don't come cheap. Mr. Coleman, is that correct? We'd have to purchase we'd have to actually get a list of mediators, agree on mediators, and then jointly pay for a mediator?
That's correct, Madam Chair. We would probably both submit a list, try to find agreed upon individual, and then there's a cost to that to both municipalities to participate in a mediation exercise,
Okay.
and the cost to administration's time in preparing counsel for that process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith and then Councillor Lewis.
And I believe this is a pay me now or pay me later. I'll just go to Highway 39 and all of the changes that have gone there, which affect my residents and your residents going out there. If we can't get our point across and they continue to shut down the highways to traffic getting home into my areas and adding times, Highway 2A, Highway 39, stuff along the airport, what I find coming back from the city of Leduc is corners are cut on everything now. They're looking at putting more land in. I mean, I was reading stuff in the paper. I think it's an opportunity. Again, we can pay a small price to get our point across, or we can go back and mop up and have to build other roads to get out of town and do what we're doing to get to our others. So pay me now or pay me later.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Do we know when the city of Leduc plans to put in their second and third reading?
Through the chair. No, there's no indication, but what is required is the mediation prior to second reading. So that's why the city administration is asking if we will compel the mediation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Vandenberg.
What is the risk of allowing the mediation waiving the mediation? What is the risk to us in this conversation? Why is it advantageous or a recommendation from administration to waive mediation?
So that recommendation was a result of what has occurred to date. So as you're aware, there was the joint council meeting and we tried to engage in discussion about the repeal of the IDP, and then there was also the letter from the mayor to the city of Leduc requesting them to reconsider repealing the IDP. And to date, city of Leduc has not responded or tried to enter into any discussions about the repeal of the IDP.
Is that clear? So we have another organization that has demonstrated at least twice that they're not interested in discussing the whys or the hows. And I believe that, yeah, and I believe even during that meeting, Council Vandenberg asked some questions and talked about red tape, and really there was no uptake from the council, perhaps demonstrating to me somewhat that they've already made up their mind. I have Ray, and then I have Jordan as an answer, and then I perhaps have, or Jordan, and then I have Councillor Smith.
Okay, I guess my thoughts on this, this is not binding. You go this, so it's just gonna be another meeting like the last one we had, where we're gonna tell them everything that our thoughts on it again, and they're gonna walk away and do nothing because there's nothing binding on that. Is that
Correct.
kind of correct? So it'll be just a repeat with the price tag. Okay.
Jordan, did you have something you wanted to add in for clarification before I go to Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to clarify on sort of moving forward. The next step, once an IDP is repealed, is to amend each respective MDP to address those issues. And so I guess that's forming part of the recommendation, is that we're looking to focus on what comes next in terms of building up that intermunicipal process, as opposed to looking back on the IDP itself. So that's the recommendation, but absolutely it's within council's purview as to how to move forward here.
Go ahead.
Again, Ray, I want to build on your comments. I was reading in the newspaper that the noise contours will soon be solved by the MLA Brad Rutherford and by the city of Leduc. So much for consultation there. Other things we're doing, two-way, no talk back on this, nothing back. And at some point, they have to hear us. And so everything the city of Leduc, in my opinion, in the last 2 years is doing is saying, hey, we're doing it. Put a comment in if you want, we don't care. And they're continuing on. The noise contour is really disrespectful not to have the host municipality involved in those conversations. I mean, even the Highway 2 is going to be negatively impacted by 65th Avenue. There's no conversations there. At what point are we happy with no conversations with the city of Leduc and just the bill? Because we're still getting the bill, and then now we're not getting the conversation. So that is even further removal in respect of Leduc County when neighboring municipalities can't spend time. So we have a device to force them to come out and speak to us about this, because they haven't bothered and they're taking their road. This is how they're conducting their business. Do we just want to let it go, or do we want to actually follow through with the tools that we have in our toolbox to express ourselves? So please support this today. Don't give them another free pass on another 10 projects that they're just doing in spite of themselves without consulting us, being respectful, or entering in any partnerships. It's very difficult, and it's hard to talk to my residents about the large sum that comes off the airport, and we're not even getting the respect of people talking to us about that. So again, I'm supporting going to mediation. I know it's inconvenient, but I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't want to do something that was inconvenient.
Councillor Vandenberg.
So there was a time when we didn't have IDPs or ICFs, okay? So we always managed to talk or not talk and do projects and grow and partner with and that sort of thing. In this recommendation, you're referring to agreeing to engage in constructive discussion with Leduc County to address intermunicipal issues within the MDP. So I guess remind me, because it's been a long time ago before the IDP, but going forward, if we let this IDP go, how do we communicate? What does that look like? You put work in the MDP, what is your guarantee that we're going to talk about those things that Councillor Smith just brought up? I mean, is it, we'll come to the table if we feel like it in the future? Please enlighten me a little bit.
Okay, so through the chair, the Municipal Government Act does require that where there's an absence of an IDP, that there are provisions in each respective municipality's development plan that speaks to infrastructure and coordination of land use along the boundaries. It doesn't necessarily say boundaries, but that's the, I guess, the implication, or that it would be referring to the boundaries. So as Jordan mentioned earlier, the IDP does state that once the IDP is repealed, that we will update our respective MDPs. And so that's why, as part of the recommendation, we had asked that there'll be these constructive discussions on that, because that's the next step. Let's focus on ensuring that we have those provisions in our respective MDPs. Now, as far as outlining, like currently in the IDP, we have our committees, our intermunicipal liaison committees that were intended to take and address many matters. We would not have that anymore. That of course would be gone. So we could take and put referral mechanisms, like what are referrals going to look like, what are our response times, and then the MGA also has a provision. So where there is a proposed land use that could be detrimental to the adjacent municipality, there is a manner of appealing that to the land rights and tribunal. Do I have that one that changed? It was municipal affairs. So there's still that ability to go down that road. It's just not as proactive as the IDP, definitely.
So I'm hearing it, there still is, you will be
Mechanism.
building in some mechanisms to chat at the table. Because it's required by the Municipal Government Act.
Correct.
And it'll be reflected in our updated MDPs, both parties, to be able to have that mechanism to talk. Then you threw in the land tribunal thing that I don't understand. We only talked about it today, really. That really has, it's just a bunch of people to get together and decide without authority on. So they're going to then tell us whether 2A is a good deal for us or not. Like, I'm getting confused on this, because here's the time that we need to pay close attention to how we're going to communicate in the future. Okay, and so that's the part that I need to understand is, what is our strategy for site? And you said it, MGA, MDP, land tribunal, don't understand that one. So I guess Grant is going to put up his hand and help me out.
Forget about the tribunal.
Okay, thank you.
That's a separate issue. And Lori correctly raised it in the context of so the tribunal does have authority. It's an appeal body, right? So there are circumstances under which adjacent municipalities can appeal certain types of decisions to the LPRT. But I wouldn't say that's a useful part of this conversation necessarily. It might be something that we need to think about down the road. But to be clear, Madam Chair, all of the concerns that members of council are raising about this issue around the IDP are the same concerns administration has, right? I mean, so this isn't really a question about whether we should have an IDP or not. We've gone down that road. So there's been a joint council meeting. So if you back up a step, City of Leduc notified, this is all public record, City of Leduc notified the county that they intend to repeal the IDP. A mayor-to-mayor letter was sent, asked to reconsider. That didn't bear any fruit.
No.
So the next step on the list in the IDP process that's identified in the IDP is to have a joint council meeting, which we did. It was a one-sided conversation. Again, public record. So there's really only one thing left here, which is to repeal the IDP, essentially, right? There are no provisions in law or in policy that force any other mechanism on either party. So it can be unilaterally discharged. That's the effect of the IDP that is in place today.
Councillor Lewis?
Can you clarify the mediation portion of the motion then? Because I guess it doesn't make sense if we're trying to go to mediation or waive mediation before they do their second reading? I guess I'm just confused on that process.
So through the chair, policy 6.3.5 of the IDP requires mediation before the city of Leduc takes and gives second reading to repeal the IDP. So city administration has asked if we will compel mediation. We're suggesting that we not have mediation and that we go straight to discussions on what our MDPs should look like. How should they be amended? That was the recommendation.
Councillor Smith, and then I have a comment.
And there's also a recommendation on the floor that needs to come into that as well. There was a recommendation made by Min, it wasn't accepted, and I put one forward. So I'd like that to go into the record that what we're talking about right now is not waiving. So that should be part of the discussion as well, not going into discussions in a different level. I think you put some pressure on the city of Leduc by asking them to go into the mediation process. If you give them a free pass, why even bother going into any further discussions? Because I can tell you what they're going to give you.
So thank you, Councillor Smith. We are currently debating your motion. That is the motion that's currently on the table. That was the only motion that was made, and that is to not waive the requirement for mediation. I listen carefully to what you've said, but I won't support the motion. I think the city of Leduc has very clearly, and publicly demonstrated that they have no desire to continue with the IDP. And you brought up some really good examples, right? The work that they did with the airport around AVPA, which, by the way, the county did participate in. We sort of pushed our way in, but we did participate in those discussions, even around the NEF contours. We made sure that we were there as host municipality of the airport. But it does show that a municipality can go ahead and do work without, even with an IDP, without involving their neighbor, which is kind of what you're saying they've already done. And then you alluded to, you know, the Highway 39 and what's happening with 65th Avenue. I don't know how we continue to have those conversations, but to hire a mediator for $30,000 or $40,000 to sit there and have the same type of non-response that we got in a public meeting where, and again, I will give credit to Councillor Vandenberg for actually trying to prompt and prod questions, didn't happen. They have no desire to do this. And so it might be best to just allow it to be repealed and actually spend our time and money trying to come up with another type of way to communicate. Because to be honest, you don't need an IDP if you're in the EMRB, do you? Between municipalities? No, it's not even required because we are part of the Edmonton Metropolitan Board. This is something that we carried over for whatever reason. We were also not able to hear from the city of Leduc, either in those meetings or in other conversations, why they're choosing to repeal it. We don't understand. And I don't know that that would come out in mediation either, because you don't have to participate fully in mediation either. So it is not the best way to treat your neighbor. It's not the best way to work with a partner. And certainly the city of Leduc has provided lots of evidence of how Leduc County has been a good partner for many, many years. This isn't how you treat a partner. So that part is disappointing. Floor is open for any other comments or questions. Councillor Vandenberg.
Well, in the day where we're trying to gauge prolonged and maybe prolonged discussion and maybe a change of mind. Timing is everything in a lot of cases.
Your microphone. I'm sorry, your mic. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Timing is everything in a lot of cases, but I also have a lot of faith in the work that Jordan and Lori and Grant could be doing if this, if the IDP is waived, is failed. And I think maybe that is probably the direction we ought to go. And I am not trying to minimize anything that Councillor Smith has mentioned. I agree with those things that he has, but I don't know that this is the fight I think there's more positiveness in what you can do coming forward with opening up reestablishing that line of communication. I think that's where the effort needs to be now. Because the city of Leduc wouldn't even tell us a reason why. And it's within their rights. And as pointed out, being EMRB members, not required. So let's focus. I think now we ought to just focus on reestablishing that line of communication and hoping that I hate to say hoping, I'm sure it'll end up being a good line of communication. So I will not be able to support the motion right now, unfortunately.
Further comments or questions on the motion to not waive the requirement put on by Councillor Smith? Okay, I'm going to call the questions. All in favor of not not waiving the requirement? Councillor Lewis and Councillor Smith. All those opposed? Councillor Scobie, Wanchuk, Vandenberg, DeBlanco, and Belazer. The motion has failed. So I will put the motion on to waive the requirement as in our recommendation. Leduc County waive the requirement for mediation prior to the City of Leduc considering second reading of the bylaw to repeal the City of Leduc County IDP as outlined in section 6.3.5 of the IDP, subject to the City of Leduc agreeing to engage in constructive discussion with Leduc County to address intermunicipal issues in the respective municipalities' municipal development plans. Councillor Vandenberg.
So the interesting part in here in this motion is subject to the City of Leduc agreeing to engage in constructive discussion. What happens if it don't? Then we stop. Then where do we go?
Take that sentence out.
No, I think we need to kind of leave that in there.
Mr. Bain.
So, Madam Chair, it's really about setting expectations, really. That's what that statement is about. And administration wanted to have that language in the recommendation in front of you. We would see this being a mayor-to-mayor communication to direct this message back to the City of Leduc, and that would form part of that message. We need a commitment, right? We need a commitment from the city to have an actual conversation about our mutual interests around boundary issues, growth management, where they want to grow, the rate of, like, there's a deep conversation here to have, and it's largely technical, but we need to understand that we have a willing partner. So the expectation here would be there'd be a mayor-to-mayor communication that would be responded to with a mayor-to-mayor communication. Now, we can't force that in any particular way. I guess we'll have to see how that goes.
Okay. That
Yeah, I'm in agreement that needs to stay in. And for those reasons that you just said, it's got to be,
we need something.
Needs something in there.
Councillor Smith and then Councillor Lewis.
Again, this will pass today. I'm pretty sure I won't be supporting it. I'm just going to go back to the other, that they're going to agree to engage, much the same as the huge list of things that we've agreed to engage. One of them being cost share after years and years and years and years of unproductive discussion. The one comment from one of the councillors was, why would we change it? We'll just keep collecting it. So I'm wondering, with that type of constructive discussion availability, that there's just another one on the pile that's going to end up as not being there, from sound contours, the highways not being followed through, this one. So again, I'll vote against this today. I want you guys and women to realize that this is a free pass for the City of Leduc to get out of this, and don't take it for anything more than that. If you go home tonight and go, oh good, there's going to be constructive discussion coming, don't. Say to yourself, this is a free pass, and I have no problem with that. Let them dump it and move on with the other 50 courses of business that they more or less have said thanks, but no thanks to everything we've been asking to go. And it's not fair. The public needs to know how difficult the relationship is with the City of Leduc, and where we are trying to work as a partner and work on things that are good for both communities and taxpayers. And it's not happening. So give them their pass today, but don't expect anything more.
Thank you. I have Councillor Lewis and then Councillor Vandenberg for a second time.
Thank you. We tried to engage in the constructive discussion during our joint council meeting, and we got nothing. they didn't want to listen. They were just there to state their case and that was it. And I just don't see that happening even if we pass this. I will not support this.
Thank you. Counselor Vandenberg?
So the interesting thing about this motion is it has a very key, interesting phrase in here, and that is subject to the city of Leduc agreeing to engage. So this motion may pass today, but it'll be meaningless if Leduc does not agree to engage in constructive. So we're gonna be back at the table again if they don't. So there's a protective, that is the protective clause in here that I see that makes this motion relevant. And it does still support.
Just a sidebar. Yeah, thank you.
It does still, that you're suggesting it does, because it is subject to them agreeing to engage in conversation. It's really it's sort of that long ball, the same thing as with the mediation.
Without
You know, at least we're moving in a different direction, and I think it's worth a try.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Yeah, why not?
Counselor Smith, final comment?
And again, one problem I have with the motion is we are asking Leduc to behave in a certain way. And that's not fair to ask another municipality in our motion to behave a certain way. If we have expectations, they're going to follow our motion. Another disappointment for you. So I like the fact that giving them the waiver, letting them go in, do their 2-3 readings, they're out and they move on to the next project against us.
Thank you. Further comments? So we have a recommendation to waive the requirement for mediation. And again, subject to the city of Leduc agreeing to engage in constructive discussion. That is the motion on the floor. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Scobie, Wanchuk, Vandenberg, DeBlanco, and Belazer opposed. Lewis and Smith. Thank you. And with that, it is 3:11. I will adjourn our regular council.